do it.
No, I've already turned those on. Why would I put myself in this spot? Welcome back to Shower Talk with Tina and Norm. We clearly have had some pre-conversation here.
Oh, goodness.
Tina has a different idea how this production works. I literally, we have cameras set up, 3 of them. They're iPhones. We sat here talking about the topic beforehand.
Coming up with the title.
Just trying to come up with the title and why we had been talking about it previously. And the cameras were recording. So I'm like, okay, I need to turn them off. Just there's no sense in having them record. Not that there's film in it or anything. So then we got to where we had it. I started them back up, got them going, sat down, hit the record button on here, and then she thought I had to get up to do the cameras again. I'm like, what? Why would I lock myself into this seat with the microphone in front of me just to get up again?
Today was a shitty day. I needed that laugh. Thank you.
Not how I roll.
Anyway. Hi.
Hi. Yeah. Shower Talk. Tina and Norm. We already did that, but
episode 51.
51. You ought to know, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're calling it. You ought to know.
Absolutely.
But really quick, we have to give a shout out to our folks at Soray Wellness. Yeah. I'm a little sore right now, actually, from exercising the other day. But it's not their fault. They didn't make me exercise. They're just hitting us with the laser and trying to incinerate some of our fat cells.
It's going good.
Yeah, it is going well. And they do a good job over there.
They do.
We appreciate them for sponsoring, I guess, if you will. Yeah, it's our first official sponsor, and we're happy to have them. Right? We go over there all the time. Usually we go tanning, we hit some red light, and we started doing the laser treatment, and it's working out well. So if anybody's interested in hearing more about what they have to offer, reach out to them. LA Tan in Wheaton. Soray Wellness is inside of there. Yep. They're transitioning to more wellness stuff instead of just tan, right?
Yes, they are.
They'll still always offer those services because obviously it's what they're known for, but they're adding things that are becoming more popular.
They actually let us know last weekend that if our listeners call and end up buying any of the package, that they're giving them a 10% Shower Talk discount.
That's right. You gotta
yay!
You gotta give us a shout out.
Yes.
So I would say talk to Sky or Lorelai. About that. They'd probably be the ones to know better than anybody else. So ask for one of those 2 ladies. They're all great over there.
They are.
They always take care of us.
They
do. It's moving in the right direction. I'm noticing it in the little different parts where the laser actually isn't hitting.
We still have a lot of sessions to go, but we'll definitely share our before and after pics and measurements and stuff. But definitely the clothes are fitting better. Everything's going good.
Right.
So yeah,
awesome.
Okay.
That's
that's
the end of that. Next segment, please. Tina's a master of segues. Okay.
I have no idea how to ride a Segway.
It's waka. She's bringing the comic relief this week, folks.
Oh,
I guess
boy.
I'll be the serious one. So yeah, you ought to know, right?
Yeah, tell them.
What is it?
You tell them.
I thought you knew.
I thought you knew.
It's all about. So we touched on it a little bit in the spiral episode.
Yeah.
I spin me right round. That's episode 49. If you want to go check it out. It's, it was all about getting in your head, but part of it, I started to touch on it. I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about it in another episode. And it's I'm going to say it's the bullshit that people say that they think their partner should just automatically know what they're thinking about.
Miscommunication.
What they want, what they need. All of it. It's just ridiculous.
It really is. you don't even know what you want and need, and you want someone else to know what you want and need. That's kind of ridiculous.
People think, even if they've been together for a very long time, you just assume that they're going to know something. And if you didn't ever tell them,
right,
how are they actually supposed to know?
Or if time goes on and you have some growth in yourself and you've healed, something that you once did want or need no longer pertains, and there's something different. And if they're still treating you the same way, you get pissed about it because they should know that you've changed and healed. No.
Right. No. It's an assumption is a big part of it, and it's funny because that's the whole stupid ass out of you and me kind of thing, right? You made the assumption, what Felix Unger?
That's how I remember that is on The Odd Couple, where he had assume written out on the blackboard, and it was, you make an ass out of you and me. That's the only reason I know about assume.
Wow. I had no idea that they would even have put that on the.
I can't believe you didn't know that.
The Odd Couple. Stuff. For those of you that don't know what the hell we're talking about right now,
it was him, and he said, "Make an ass out of you and me," and he does it on the blackboard, and I was like,
"Yes, Felix Unger, Oscar Madison." But I didn't know. I mean, that show was on in the early to mid 70s.
I think it was late 60s, early 70s.
Said ass back then. Anyway. We're gonna have to go find it now. It's freaking me out a little bit that they did that back then. But I even with the last episode, we were talking about, we were kind of talking about sex stuff, and that's a great example of not knowing what your partner wants and your partner getting upset because they assume you should just know,
right?
Does something feel good? Does it not feel good?
Right.
I guess if you go, ow, that's your indication not to do that. But, or that's not it. Or not expressing yourself in those instances and then getting upset that something didn't happen,
Right.
In that case, a lot of times it's more the guys, that catch it for that stuff because, I guess women's bodies are complicated or something. I don't know. But they'll get upset because they feel like you should pick up on the cues. And to some extent, I would agree with that a little bit, right? But you have to have the conversation about it. It just creates drama and
it does
hurt feelings
and miscommunication.
Yeah.
And yes. So
and yes, okay.
It just made me think
very poignant this evening.
It just made me think of an ex-boyfriend story of he used to say to me, why do you have to be so direct about everything? Mm-hmm. Like, why do you always have to say what's on your mind? Why can't you be more subtle? Like, be more subtle. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, leave me guessing. Leave me, like, make me think about it. Make me have to chase you. And I'm like, so you want to play games? Like,
right.
Okay, like, no. Like, no. To me, that was not the right answer. And he's like, no, it's not games. But I'm like, no, it is games. Well, being direct, he's like, it's in your face. And I'm like, but not really. Like, can it be? Yes. At the same time, where does subtlety get you?
Yeah.
Like, I remember that there was a guy that he worked for back then that he had gone through a nasty divorce, and then he had this new girlfriend. He was really happy for quite a while with this girlfriend, and he was going to propose, but on his time, not her time. And he told me he was getting tired of her subtle hints. Like, this is why this all came up. He said, I'm so sick of her subtle hints. I go, what subtle hints? He goes, I come home from work and there's, wedding magazines on the table, and the coffee table, or I'm in the bathroom and instead of picking up my issue of Sports Illustrated, there's like a fucking wedding magazine or jewelry magazine, or I open up my Sports Illustrated and a card comes out from like, the jewelry store. And he's like, it was fucking irritating. And so I go, and he goes, it was annoying to him. So it actually prolonged him And he wasn't doing it to be a dick. He just didn't like, he wanted her, so the funny part was, he said, I wish she was more like you.
Yeah.
And said, I would love it if we got engaged or whatever. And I said, well, some women are afraid that, like, if they ask or, whatever, that it's like, it didn't really happen, or it's not real or whatever. And he's like, no. And then he goes, what about the guys that don't want to be rejected? And I'm like, okay, I know, but you would hope, but this is where the whole,
right.
If everyone's talking, everybody knows where everyone's head's at versus assuming and being subtle, right? And that was how the whole conversation started. So I felt validated, even though I didn't know that was a thing back then.
Right.
I felt validated in the conversation, yet the ex was like, it annoys me that you're not subtle. You need to be more subtle.
Right.
And then the funny part was, I was attempting to change who I was and be more whatever. And then I lost my voice slowly but surely. And then I look back on it and I realize it's probably more like gaslighting and manipulation and whatever.
Yeah.
However, then when I met my ex-husband, he said, can you please stop being so subtle and just be direct and say what's on your mind? And I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, and I told him, this is what happened. He goes, yeah, okay, well, he's a fucking moron. This is, you go back to being who you were and you do it. And I was like, oh my God. But I had gotten like, it was like what am I supposed to do now? So I understand why some people are awkward and anxious and have no idea how to be.
Yeah.
That's why being yourself is literally the best way.
Right.
But it's funny how that's a part of it though, right?
Well,
the subtlety of you should know I want to get engaged. That was pretty much what she was saying. And it's like he knew it, but he was like, just come right out and say, like, this is the ring you want, instead of leaving pictures around the house or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, I do. And I think, going back to especially the last couple of episodes, it boils down to communication. Like all of it does, and hopefully if you've started listening at episode 1 and we're here at episode 51, if you've learned anything, it's you have to talk. You have to talk about this stuff. And if you're making the assumption they know something and they don't, how are you going to feel about that?
Correct.
Most of the time, the reaction is they're pissed off because, so it's one of a couple things. They're either pissed off because the person didn't actually know, or they're embarrassed, so they get mad about it because they assumed you would have just known it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we as people, and I can only speak for my own gender. I'm gonna, speak for all of us out there. So hopefully I'm representing well. No, I don't really give a shit. Sometimes we, just like we talked about with the sitcoms, we come across thick-headed, like we're not paying attention and stuff. And that may be true for some. It's not true for everyone.
Right.
And some of us pick up on certain things or pay attention to more stuff than others. Now, it's going to depend on your partner.
Absolutely.
If your partner is not that person, they're not that person. And you have to know that about them. You fell in love with them for a reason. Mm-hmm. You married them, or you wanted to marry them, or you've been dating them, or you're engaged to them, whatever the fuck it is you're doing with them, for however long. Okay. Now, if it's been the first 2 months, if you have some sort of expectation, first off, the expectation of having your partner know what you're thinking and what you want is stupid.
And that's no matter how long you've been together.
No, and I'm not talking about your partner goes every day and gets your coffee order and it's the same order for the last, however long.
Right.
If they're not paying attention, okay, that's different.
Right. Of course.
But if today you decided because your hair was parted on the right side, and every time you part your hair on the right side, you like fucking cinnamon in your coffee, and they didn't pick up on it this time, and you get mad about that, okay, you should get your coffee spit in, not fucking cinnamon in your coffee, because that's stupid, But and I'm being ridiculous about it, but that's how it comes across.
No, of course.
That is how it comes across, and I think it's silliness. You have to sometimes tell them what you're thinking. You have to tell them what you're thinking. I don't like it when this, or that I really love romantic comedies and this movie's coming out. Do you want to go see it? You know, don't
Yeah.
assume because Julia Roberts is your wife's favorite actress and this is coming up that he's seen the preview for it and he's going to take you out on a date for it.
Right.
Or you left a fucking note card in his Motor Trend magazine in the shitter and that showed that the movie was coming out, and now because I'm going to guarantee you that the romantic comedy is not going to be a Motor Trend. So, like, come on.
I mean, that's the funny part, though. That's the funny part, though, too, is that, you know, like I think sometimes for me with you, because of the past, my whole life of the way things have gone for me emotionally in my life, I feel like there were days where I'd say to you, you know, I'm having a very emotional day. Like I don't know why. Like maybe I woke up and had bad dreams or whatever happened, but I would say to you, like, sorry if I'm coming off as like clingy, or like I would tell you, I'm gonna be clingy to you today because, you know, I need to feel safe and I just want to be around you, whatever.
Right.
But I don't, and you always come through for me, right? But how would you know? Like, okay, I shouldn't say that because you are amazing at that and you pick up and you pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
However, you know, you also have a lot of other shit happening in your life. So if there was a day that you didn't, at least I know that I can count on you. Like if I tell you, boom.
Right.
Like you've actually, you know, taken a day off of work to sit with me when I was, you know, feeling absolutely horrible and emotionally drained, and you made sure you were there with me, or, you know, called to check in on me or whatever. So, and I'm super grateful for all of it. However, I did also realize that in order for my needs to be met, I also need to express what they are. But I never did, because you don't really, because you are kind of taught they should know, they pay, you know, they're around you all the time. They should pay attention to your mood and da 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 da. But how do you know? Like if we're not around each other all day long and we don't get to talk till later, and you're in a bad mood or I'm in a bad mood, you know, you know, you don't know where did it stem from, what happened, whatever. I mean, you know, very rarely do we not keep in touch throughout the day, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So I feel like to me, it made my life easier to be able to say to you, you know, I just have to talk about this. Can I just dump this on you? Or, and then there's times where you're like, you know, do you want me to fix it? Like, do you want me to give you an answer? Or are you just looking to like, you know, bitch about it or what, like, you know, in a nice, because sometimes it is just, you got to get it out. And then there's other times, but you know, mostly I'm usually looking for guidance from you or your opinion or things. But sometimes it's just, you're so frustrated. You're just like,
you're just bitching about
you just want to get it out. And then that's it.
Of course.
So, but I do feel like that's hard for people to ask for that kind of stuff, to say, I'm having, you know, I think sometimes people don't want to admit that they have, I think they think it's a weakness. So we're all human. Like literally we're all human beings. We all have emotions. We all have bad days. We all have good days. We all have, you know, sick days. I mean, all kinds of shit happens to all of us. And although we all handle it differently, we still have it and we still have to handle it. So I feel like that's a big part of it, right? Is the asking, like, this is what's happening. Can you hold my hand? Can you, the day that, remember the one day after all this shit happened in the neighborhood here, I was so burned out, and you took me to the arcade and we went and played pinball. And we went and played Donkey Kong, and we went and played video games, and we had lunch and whatever. Like, that was amazing. Like, it was so great. It was just what I needed to feel better after all the shit that went down here. So
I feel like, excuse me, I feel like that was more your idea, so I'm not going to take credit for that.
But you gladly, like, you went and you came and you that's what I'm saying though, is I said I want to play with you that day. Like I want to go out and play.
Right.
And you're like, whatever you want to do, and that was it. That was fantastic. It was so needed for my mental health. It was fantastic, and it let me release and be with my favorite person in the whole world. So I think people need to do more of that.
Oh, they for sure need to do more of that, and I think that would actually be probably a good episode. Is more play, right?
Oh God!
Don't have the book in here again. Shit, that's another episode you're not going to get. Hopefully somebody reminds us. I think sometimes though, like I was saying before, it depends on your partner. If you're a lady, and I'm going to say it's more it seems more one-sided in this case, that you should know what I want, right?
Yeah.
Because of either the stereotype. There's a reason for the stereotype.
Well, we do hear it more from women, unfortunately.
We do.
Yeah.
There's a reason for the stereotype in that, in those cases, because men, they're men. Me, I'm a bit more intuitive when it comes to a lot of that stuff. And I think that's who I naturally am. But sometimes you may have a partner who's very good at that. And sometimes I think it's learned behavior too, right?
Yeah.
You have some people, well, because depending on their previous relationship. So I think this is what we're talking about is very good for any relationship or age, but newer people, meaning younger people in newer relationships, it's important because maybe they haven't had any relationship experience prior to that. And you're going based off of, thoughts that you have. A lot of us have been, as we get older, we've been in more relationships. So we've learned certain things. Some of us are more intuitive. So we just pick up on shit naturally with our partners. And some people, the learned part is part of a relationship that's either abusive. And that's usually more behaviors that they pick up on, or people pleasers. As a people pleaser, as a recovering people pleaser, you learn, you pay attention to everything because you're trying to make the other person happy.
Yes.
And I think sometimes it gets mistaken for them knowing you well versus what they've learned about in their, like for me, it's intuitive. Yes, there's lots of things that I've learned that you do or whatever. I think that's normal and natural. Again, the coffee example, if you were a coffee drinker, right? I would know that you use this certain mug all the time. It's your favorite mug. You like your coffee this way. You like, that kind of shit. You just learn as you go along. If you're paying attention.
My favorite candy when you go to Walgreens.
If you're paying attention, right? But I do think that there's times that people learn stuff out of self-preservation.
That's true.
To survival. It's not because they care. It's because they're doing it for either their own safety or to keep their relationship happy, because they're trying to not upset the other person. The other person, we talked about this recently, the D word, right? Divorce.
Yep.
Now, we didn't talk about that for the record. We didn't talk about that.
No.
It's when somebody throws the word out there in a relationship.
They're weaponizing.
Yeah, they do it very quickly and very easily and as a threat.
Yep.
And that sticks with somebody.
Yeah.
That sticks with somebody.
It's a manipulation.
It is. I learned that. I had that happen to me, and being a younger person going through a relationship for a long time, that's not what you want. You don't think that's the right thing, especially if you're, in my case, my parents were together from when I was born till my dad died,
Right.
So, and through the thick of it,
Yeah.
And, they never even got married. So there wasn't any real quote unquote divorce that would have ever happened if they split anyway. They just go their separate fucking ways.
Right.
But that never happened.
Right.
But there was no ever threat of that happening either.
Right.
At least not that I'm aware of. Now that conversation probably would have never happened from my parents to me as their child.
Of
but
course.
I heard that, and it wasn't necessarily divorce. It was, leave or go away because of whatever. And I would pick, that would make me anxious.
Of course.
And
because that messes with
I
your
had
mind.
to learn not to do certain things or say things a certain way or anything.
Yeah.
Because I'd be fearful of what it was creating for the
loss.
other person.
Right.
And then that in turn created it for me. So
and the loss, then
right.
you potentially lose.
It was the self-preservation of having to go through that in the relationship, the emotional, I'm going to use the term, the emotional turmoil of what that created. No. And, you know, it's just, it's craziness. It's craziness. But, you know, that's not a good thing.
No.
It's not a good thing. They learn it. They know stuff. They know not to do this, but they're for bad reasons. They're for terrible reasons. And I feel like if people had that kind of intuition all the time for the right reasons, then you know, they'd probably know.
Right.
You know, of course they would know that you want Cheerios on Thursday mornings every third week of the month or whatever.
I mean, and I think the things that we were talking more about the mind reading is like I mean, it's nice to know the person knows what your favorite cereal is.
And I mean, shit like that. Yeah.
Okay. But again, those things change over time.
They do.
They can, and they will. And,
right.
You know, I mean,
it's a big part of it is feelings, though. Well, you should know what I'm feeling.
Exactly. And it's not even just, let's face it, it's any relationship. Like, I mean, I've experienced not my own friendships, but been friends with people.
Yeah.
This friend and this friend who are also friends. And this one's mad at this one because of something they did or didn't do. And this one doesn't know why, because this one's oblivious to it and didn't do it on purpose, because this is just the way this person is. And instead of having the conversation, and I think we were talking about this the other night, since I was like a teenager, I would sit back and be like, but wait a minute. All you have to do is have this conversation and all this bullshit goes away. And then guess what? The air is cleared and everybody's friends. And there were a lot of times that the friendships went away.
Right.
Like they stopped talking, and then so much time passes. And then even though the other person might be like, oh, I guess so-and-so really wasn't doing it for that reason, or I really miss that person, neither one is willing to pick up the phone and call the other person and be like, I miss our friendship. Can we talk about it? Can we put it behind? Why?
Yeah.
Why is everyone let their egos control like that? So then everybody wonders why people have trust issues.
Yeah.
And people wonder why people have walls up. And people wonder why no one wants to be around other people, and why people say, I hate people. Well, come on, people, let's fucking get this straight.
Right.
If you can't have simple conversations about shit, it's easier to walk away and be an asshole to someone and blow them off and ghost them and whatever than it is to have a conversation and potentially have a really fantastic friendship forever, or a relationship, or, you know, think of the endless possibilities. You're bringing your group together with this group of people, and who meets people. You know what I mean? Like businesses come out of it, relationships come out of it, marriages, children, like the possibilities are endless, and all the wonderful people who are brought together who wouldn't have otherwise been, all because you weren't willing to fucking have a conversation to save your friendship. And I've literally seen it since I was a teenager.
Yeah. And
it makes me sad for people. I mean, back then, because of the whole people pleasing thing, you don't want to upset anyone. So you'd be like, oh, hey, so-and-so, are you sure? Blah, blah, blah. But, you know, you didn't want to be in the middle, but you kind of try to nudge. But at the same time, you have to, you know, I had people say to me, well, I wouldn't say people. Let's say the ex would be like, ex-boyfriend, that's really none of our concern. You should just leave it alone and let them figure it out on their own. But it's like, but if you see, it's like seeing something bad happening and still letting it happen anyway. So there's a part of me that understood it's their lesson to learn and everything else. But there was also this other part of me that was like, what if that friendship could have been salvaged if I would have just said, hey, dumbass, why don't you go talk to that person? Or why don't you see that they didn't do, this is what actually happened. Take with it what you will. Yeah. Right. But no, I was like, it was like, keep yourself out of it. It's none of your business.
Well, that is true. And it isn't true. I think it all depends on who the people are to you. You know, we see it all the time. You don't just butt into random people's shit and you give them advice, right?
Right.
in even when it's not random people, it's people you know very well, there might be a line that they don't want you crossing, and when you do,
yeah,
it's the great example is, when the police get called out for a domestic situation, or a good Samaritan, actually I shouldn't say the police, a good Samaritan comes across a domestic situation where a man and a woman are physically fighting, and the guy steps in and stops the guy from beating up on the female, and then next thing you know, the police show up, and the girl's blaming the good Samaritan for what happened, and he actually gets arrested because that's their story. And it was the right thing to do to step in, but that's what happens to people, and that's why sometimes they don't, because it backfires on them, and it creates bad feelings and stuff, because people don't, that's an extreme case.
I know,
but
it's also ridiculous.
People they're not thinking about what someone's intentions are. They're just getting pissed off, and it's usually not about them. But we just saw this. So, one of the trashy TV shows we watch is Below Deck. All of them, except for the sailing yacht one. That one sucks.
No, yeah.
To us, it sucks anyway. We know people watch it, but they have poor taste. So this one is Below Deck Down Under. Below Deck Down Under, if you're going to say it properly. And there's the bosun, who, for anybody that doesn't know, so quick synopsis, they're on a yacht. They have people that come on that pay a lot of money to spend a couple days on the yacht, and this follows the crew, and then every other day there's new people that come onto this boat and that kind of shit. But there's always drama, and there's always people having sex, and there's drama with that, and there's drama with this person doesn't like to work, and blah, 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 blah. But this season, there's the guy, the bosun, who's basically in charge of the deck crew, the guys and gals that wash the outside, set up all the entertainment toys and stuff like that, the jet skis and that shit, and help dock the boat, right? And launch the boat. And then there's the interior crew. Those are the people that handle the parties and the service and making sure all the drinks are taken, all that good stuff. Cleaning and making sure the rooms are taken care of, all that. So the bosun has already, he made out with one girl and she liked him, and he said it wasn't going to work. And then he made out with another girl and said, no, I just like you as a friend. And he finds this other girl. But for whatever reason, this is one of his deckhands who's been on the show before. This bosun hasn't, but Harry, the deckhand, has been on there. Super nice guy. He catches it from the bosun. The bosun gets pissed off because he feels like Harry's been doing something. So he just berates him. Yeah. And tells him, you know what you did. He's like, can you just tell me what it is you're talking about? It's like, no, you know. And he just goes off on him. So much so that it upsets Harry to the point of he's emotional about it and just, having a hard time with it. Yeah, he did not know what it was. Yeah. He was so pissed off about. And he wouldn't tell him. He just kept telling him he should know. You know what you did. And that's the equivalent of something that you and I both hate, is when the person, I know we talked about this several episodes ago, when one person decides they need to speak their mind and tell you their thoughts, but they're not going to listen to you. Yeah. They're not going to listen to you. I'm going to tell you this, and then when you try to have a conversation back, no, I said my piece. I'm done. Oh, okay. So you got it off of your chest, and that's other person just
that's
gets...
That's what duct tape and chairs are for.
Exactly. That's, to me, that's like gaslighting, kind of. You're just firing them up and not giving them an opportunity to speak. But that's what he was doing. He wasn't giving him a side to hear his side or talk about him.
And he genuinely wanted to know. He was yelling at him, and he was willing to face him in this argument
and have a conversation.
To find him. And he said,
he
no, he should know. You should
know what
know.
You've been doing.
Mm-hmm. And he said, I genuinely don't know. And he said, well, you need to stop what you're doing because it's ruining everything. And he was like,
well, so
yeah, that was a good example.
I actually have another example. When we, a few weeks ago, I was talking to one of my coworkers, and she wasn't around when we had the COVID disaster by us. And I told her we had teammates that we were separated into two areas. And I know I talked about this briefly on the podcast before, but about communication, I think it was.
Yeah.
And we were talking over Microsoft Teams, and one person would be taking the 911 call and they would enter it. And of course it shows up on all of the computers, but the person who may be dispatching it that day was in a different building. And if something wasn't put into the call for service to dispatch the deputies, somebody would ask about it. And then what kept happening is people were getting mad because this person didn't put this in the call. And this person said, they were reading when the person would send a message back asking a question about the call, the other person would read it in the worst voice possible.
Of course.
And almost like, well, you should know, right? And that's kind of what was happening. Is they were like, well, like it's logical, but it's not, because if it's not in there, we can't assume it.
Yeah.
It's the assumption portion. If I assume this information is there and it's wrong and I give it out, now who's at fault? Well, me, because it doesn't say it in the call. So we clarify, and then people would get pissed and they felt like, someone was targeting them. Well, no, you didn't put it in there.
Right.
Now, there were instances where they did and it just didn't get seen, and the person would ask a question. Okay, well, you didn't read through it all.
That is more annoying.
It is. But
you took the time to do it and people still ignored it.
It happens.
Hate that.
Well,
I fucking hate that.
And I get that. And if this isn't a thought out email outlining and detailing something that the information is there. This is a priority 911 call that has a note and then a note and then a note and then a note. And it's, you have to, when you're dispatching it, you're dispatching that on top of listening to all of the other people that may have information for the calls they're on.
Yeah.
And you have to try to keep up with it and get that information out. So, I mean, it's what we do, but sometimes a note might get missed. And at the time we didn't have a system that would flag a note, right? Yeah. So, the newer system we have is like one of the older systems we had where you could actually highlight a note essentially in red so that it pops up and you go, oh shit, I need to pay attention to that. And when I go back to it, I see it instead of 10 notes in and you got to try to decipher. But that was a huge communication issue, and people were just, they were kind of doing the same thing that we're talking about.
Yeah.
They were getting pissed off that the other person was questioning it, but you didn't tell them. You didn't put the information in there, and they can't assume it. Now, was somebody trying to be an asshole sometimes, or were people sometimes poking at them for whatever reason? Maybe. Proving that's very difficult to do, but it doesn't even matter. The reality is even if they were, if you didn't do your job and put it in there, you can't be upset that they're asking you the question. You can't be upset that they're asking you for the information that you did not put in the call.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, but it's the same thing.
It is. Well, the other thing too is like, I had this conversation with someone about a week or so ago where I was talking to a new buyer, and not everybody's going to get along for one reason or another, right? Sometimes people just don't jive, whether it's, you're too loud, you're too quiet, you're too whatever, you're different color, you're different age, you're whatever the hell it is. There's always going to be a reason, whatever. That's fine, that people don't jive. And you have to be okay with it. As people, we all have to be okay with it. And so sometimes, like for me, as a mortgage professional, I want people to have the best experience ever because it's a big deal to buy a house.
Yeah.
So, for me, I was talking to this woman, and she was new, anxious, nervous. No one in her family's ever bought a house before, so she has no one to turn to or no one to talk to. And I joked around with her and I said, just promise me you won't get your mortgage advice on TikTok. And she kind of nervously laughed and she goes, that's actually where I get a lot of my mortgage advice. And then she kind of laughed, and I laughed where they go, I'm literally just kidding, but not really. I said, you watch whatever you'd like, but I just want you to know that a lot of the people on TikTok are full of shit. They're just influencers who are trying to get more people to like them. They're trying to convince people to do things that aren't, whatever. And I said, but look, just do me a favor, because I think she was talking to someone else, or somebody was in her ear about talking to someone else or whatever kind of shit. And I said, just do me a favor. If for whatever reason you don't feel that this is a good match, you just let me know. And if you feel like telling me why it's not a good match, that helps me for the future to grow. If I meet other people like yourself or whatever, great. If not, no hard feelings. I want whatever's best for you. I don't think that's a bad conversation to have with people.
No.
But how many people have ever had that conversation back with me? People, they fucking ghost you. They don't want. But here's the thing. How do you expect people to be able to change things in this world? I'm going to say this world.
Yeah.
If everybody just wants to fucking bitch about it, and nobody wants to take the time to say, hey, Norm, the way that you did this thing or whatever, here's what I'd like to tell you. This is why it bothered me, or this is why I'm not going to work with you, or this is why, if you change this, I will work with you, or whatever. Like, it's respect. And it's also giving a person an opportunity to correct something. So let's flip it into, that's worldwide. Let's flip it into your relationship. If you're pissed off that your person is doing things that annoy you, because you're refusing to tell them that they annoy you because they should know that it annoys you.
Yeah.
That's your fucking fault.
Right.
Okay? Are they doing it now? If you've had the conversation with the person and they are still doing it, then that's their fault. Different story. Right. That's their fault now, right? Because you made it clear, this is something I don't like, or something that bothers me when you do it. And if they continue to do it, okay, you got your answer.
Well, and I think, yes. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No. And so the reality is that if you don't give people the opportunities, give your partner, your significant other, the opportunity to make the corrections, ultimately you are also contributing to the demise of your happiness, your peace, and your fucking relationship. Yeah. And that's your part of it. When we talk about people owning their part of it, right? What's your part of it? Your part of it is your ego. You stood your ground and said he should know or she should know. No. You just let your whole thing blow up because you wouldn't take a 5-minute conversation to say, go pick your fucking clothes up in the hallway. Right. It drives me nuts that you leave your clothes in the hallway. Please stop doing that. Right. That's it. Like, I mean, obviously nicer than that. But I'm just saying, you're going to let your relationship turn tumultuous and, confrontational because of something like that. Like, and then complain that everyone else around you has all these wonderful relationships. No, pay attention to how you control. If you're letting your ego control everything you do, where it won't allow you, he should know I'm a princess or I'm a queen or whatever, and you should know it. No. Right. No. Sorry. No. That's not how it works. They're not mind readers, and they shouldn't be mind readers.
No. I think the only time those are, if you've told them and they still do it, and we could say that it is their fault, and I agree with that. Yes. Depending on what it is. Yeah. It all depends on what it is. If it's something they can't control or help, you're a loud chewer. Oh. Okay. Yeah. What the fuck are they supposed to do about that? Yeah. They don't make cheek deaf. Insulation, right? Or
sorry. If they're hard of hearing and they talk loud or whatever. Yeah.
There's things that they can't help. And, you have to be understanding of that. Right. And if you're not, then that person's not for you, I guess. Give it up. I mean, because it's just going to be...
You're giving up your peace. That's what I'm saying. You're giving up your inner peace because you're putting up with it just to make a point. Right. That they should have read your mind and known what you were thinking. Right. Sorry.
And no, it's you're correct. But in that case, if you're with somebody and they have this thing that's always going to annoy you, and it's always going to be an issue, what do you do about it?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you do about it? you have a fucking conversation about it and you try to figure something out. Because if the relationship's worth it, then you do figure it out.
You find a way to compromise.
If it's not, then move the fuck on. Let the loud chewer go find somebody else, and you go find a quiet chewer or somebody that doesn't eat at all. They have a liquid diet. I don't fucking know. But don't put yourself through it. Ultimately, again, if it's worth it. If it's if the relationship is worth it to you, then you figure it out.
Well, I never liked the mind reading.
Make macaroni and cheese all the time.
I've never liked the mind reading. It's just it may, like, even saying it sounds ridiculous.
Right.
Why do you think, and you know what the funny part is, some of it you have to blame on rom-coms. Like, like you and I there's so many times where, like, we'll both say something at the same time, like, or I'll be like, oh my God, I would really love some Jets pizza right now. And you're like, oh, I'm going to order Jets. And it's funny. It's like, we almost like totally, so it's funny, but we're not like, I'm not like, what the fuck, Norm? I wanted some Jets pizza. You didn't know I wanted Jets.
It's Friday.
You ordered Rosati's instead, or you didn't get pizza. Like, come on. Like, to me, that's ridiculous. So, and that's on
unless I show up with like kale salad or something, then I deserve it.
Then you're just an asshole.
That's right.
Yeah. But
a pretentious asshole.
But I'm just saying, like, we're joking about those things, but when it comes to the bigger things that mean something, like, like, he knows I'm having a bad day and he didn't text me today.
Right.
I mean,
but
how does he know you're having a bad day? Because you wrote hi?
Right. Hi. Right. Or, oh, my mom's driving me nuts. Right. He knows I'm having it. Whatever.
It's like you didn't.
Whatever it is. Yeah,
right. But you should know what that means. No. Right. Especially in and throughout the day when people are busy at work, or they're in a meeting, or they're with clients, or your mom at home with the kids running around and you're doing laundry or grocery shop. Like, come on. Give each other some fucking breaks here.
Right.
Like, seriously, and stop contributing to the nonsense, by the way.
Well,
you're contributing if you want them to mind read.
You are. And in certain scenarios, if you're having a bad day and they didn't message you or they didn't text you, what kind of day are they having?
Right.
Did you stop to think about what kind of day they may be having? They're probably just sitting at work with their feet up, drinking some coffee, reading the fucking funny papers, slapping the secretary on the ass. They're just, that's all that's going on at their work today, because that's, must be easy.
Well, that's probably where the spiral comes in, though.
Yeah, no, of
because
course,
that's
the
what they're
does
thinking.
Come
Oh,
into,
yeah, great. What are you sitting around all day?
Oh, you get to
work
leave the house.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's fucking, I get to go work at some fucking job that I hate because...
But this is our point, though, right? If you fucking have a conversation about this, that doesn't happen.
Right.
You don't spiral on it, because now you understand. Oh, look, he's busy, she's busy.
Or...
You know what I mean?
Or
maybe they were sitting around waiting to come home to see you, and now they don't even want to come home because now you're being an asshole.
After work meeting, right?
Because now you were an asshole
at the bar. No, the reality is, if you're having a day like that, and you want your spouse or your lover or whoever you want to talk to them because you need to get some stuff off your chest. Reach out to them.
Or your friends.
Say, hey,
whoever.
I'm sorry. I know you're probably having a busy day, but I need to talk. Do you have a minute? Yeah. Because they may actually be busy.
Yeah.
They may actually be doing something. They're probably not ignoring you.
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
Now, there are cases I'm sure somebody's ignoring you.
Well, that's because you've been in this pattern now where they're like, oh,
right. It's a fucking hamster wheel, and nobody knows where to get off. Right.
Yeah. Been on that hamster wheel. No thanks.
So
no thanks.
Yes, that does happen, but it wouldn't happen.
Right.
If you take the time. First off, hang on. I'm not gonna say first off. If you take the time to message them or reach out to them. Now, if it's every day, all day, about every fucking little thing, something needs to happen.
Right.
There, right?
There's some needy, clingy,
codependency
going on.
Or they don't listen.
Yeah.
They don't fucking listen. You give them solutions, or you talk about solutions. They know what those solutions are, and they just don't do them because, I don't know, they're too hard. They're too whatever. Don't.
Because sometimes people just want to bitch because it's like a fucking cancer and it grows and it gets worse and it spreads. Like you said in the last one or two couple of episodes ago where you said it spreads when one person's negative.
Right.
It's the same shit.
Right. Everybody gets on the bandwagon.
Yeah. It's easier to be negative and then not, it's ridiculous. You have to be very conscious and aware. I'm in a negative headspace right now. I'm gonna take some deep breaths, or like today when I go fuck it, I took my shoes off and I'm like, I'm just gonna go for a walk, which I never did.
Right.
But because I had like one of the shittiest days ever today.
Yeah.
I was super fucking pissed. My blood pressure was probably up to here. But and as a friend pointed out, I wasn't hurting anyone but myself.
Right.
You had to listen to me. Thank you.
I didn't have to listen to you.
Well, you heard me.
I did.
But I'm just saying though, she reminded me that I was the only one that was going to suffer and be hurt by this because I was stressing myself out from being so angry.
Yeah.
At the time I was like, I'm grateful that she was saying it, but I was also like, I was so far off the tracks at that point. I was out in the middle of the jungle today.
Well,
so
yeah. Well, and even for us, there. So, there was something happened. It was kind of funny, and it's kind of off topic, but it's not because it's about communicating.
Is it today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's the same situation.
Right. So you had a situation where an underwriter told you they had used their adding machine. These are their words. And they didn't put the numbers in something, so you couldn't see what they had.
They wouldn't share the numbers.
They told you that your numbers were incorrect and that you had to change them to what they're telling you to change them to. But
not the dollar amounts.
Right.
Yeah.
But they couldn't tell you what theirs were because they had done them on their adding machine. So you were telling me this, and it made me laugh because who the fuck uses an adding machine? Like, and I understand why people do. Trust me, I get it. It's a giant calculator. It's easy. They probably have used it for a very long time, and it's like second nature, right?
I guess.
It's second nature for them to use it. They probably don't even look at the fucking thing. They type as they're looking at something else, and they know how to use it, right? I've seen people use them. They're like the old school smoking accountant that does this shit. It's just like, that was a adding machine noise, by the way. But I thought it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't think it was funny so much.
No, I was pretty fucking pissed off.
No, you were mad. Yeah, you got mad about it.
I
was laughing,
mad.
and you're like, why are you laughing? It's not funny. I'm like, well, no, it's funny. It's fucking funny. The adding machine thing is funny. I wasn't laughing at you.
Right.
I was laughing at the adding machine thing, but you weren't having it.
I was not having it.
And, we talked about it later, and you knew what it was. Actually, within a few minutes, you understood I was not making fun of you. I was not laughing at your situation.
That is correct. You were laughing at who uses an adding machine.
Right. It was fucking funny.
Yes.
And I also knew, and I gave you shit about it, was that, you made the comment, if I had money to give back, because in your industry, they give you guarantees for the first few months until you build your business, I would give that money back and just go work someplace else. Fuck this. And I said, yeah, but a week ago it was the greatest place ever to work.
Oh, God.
And you're just like, you also didn't want to hear that. But
no,
you knew I was right.
100% you were.
Because you were having a bad day.
Yes, I was.
Okay? A bad day. And it sucked. I'm sorry you were having a bad day. But you've had,
lots of great days.
Correct. That one bad day doesn't take away from all of those other days where you're just going to throw the money and be like, fuck it, I'm out of here. Come on.
Oh yeah, no, I totally have a sharp tongue and can be such a fucking asshole when I'm mad. I am not, I can be a pretty mean, mad person.
You could. You weren't to me. You were mad, but you weren't mean to me or anything.
Well, but I also thanked you because given my past and all my relationships, including with my family, not feeling worthy and validated and supported.
Right.
I was like, okay, here's where he's just going to ditch me like everybody else does and tell me that I'm, too much or whatever. But I didn't have that thought.
Right.
I didn't have that thought because we've had the conversations.
Yeah.
That's what's so great about it is it doesn't stop those things from happening. However, it literally far and few between. And when it does happen, you've got the tools now how to like it didn't become an argument. Like you were just like, okay,
it stops
like
there.
right, exactly. And you didn't come at me because you knew, and then I didn't keep on it, and then we did laugh about it. Like, I mean, of course, because you're right. I didn't want to hear the things you were saying because you were right, and I didn't want to hear it at the time.
It's funny because I'm sitting here thinking next time I'm just gonna go put this T-shirt on and stand next to you. I'm wearing a T-shirt that says "Shh, no one cares." That'll help. It'll be like saying "Calm down, ma'am, calm down."
Oh God, I know. No. But anyway, no. But you're right. It's true though. But that's a great point though. That because of the work we've done with each other and the communication and being able to have, like for me, you let me rant, you let me rave, you let me bitch, you let me get mad, you let me scream. You laugh a little bit at me when I take a fist and I want to punch things and I want to, when I say I need a bat and I need to go break shit and whatever, like, because I also know that you feel the same way sometimes, which that's why we connect on that because we understand that's what's happening. We don't do it, but we want to. And so you let that, but you don't ever judge me, reprimand me, shit on me or anything. Like you shouldn't be doing this. You're not supposed to, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay. And because you allow those things and because we've had the conversations, it doesn't last long. It didn't. It like I'm actually proud of myself that for as mad as I was today and how fucking pissed I was and ticked off and then the worst part is it took every ounce of strength to not send nasty fucking comments back to I had two situations happening today and it took all of my strength to not send back just the nastiest, meanest fucking things to these people. I even told my boss, who I can talk to like that, it's taking literally, I type message on Teams, it's taking all of my strength to not be sending rude message, to be not rude, to be sending emails back. I withheld. So that made me feel more angry because I couldn't blast it the way I wanted to blast it. So, I got away. I feel like I did pretty good after. It kind of
because it all fucking worked out.
Well,
it worked out. It'll be, other things will be addressed, but everything actually worked out. So, and it got corrected.
It did, but
one of the situations, there's no but here. One of the situations got corrected.
Yeah.
And you actually made a good contact out of it.
That was
so good. That you know if you have anything in the future. So there was some very good that came out of it.
Yeah, that one's definitely good.
And then one other situation, the job got done. However, there's some correction that needs to happen on that, but that's not for you to correct. It's for you to, the thing that happened to you today, and this is completely off topic, but we're in it anyway. But the thing that happened to you today is hopefully you learned, instead of continuing to try to fix it on your own, you recruit the people that are supposed to fix it for you. There are people above you.
I did
that. So the difference in these situations are, because there's multiple departments always working on a deal, so you have processors and underwriters and the loan officer and closers. Your manager's job is to go to the other manager's jobs and go, hey, this deal is getting fucked up right now because of this. Here's what we need to do. Or why is this happening? So that it can provide some clarity. And that is their job, where it's a little different in regular managerial roles. You handle your folks. If you need to go someplace else and ask a question, but usually, at least by us, there's not other things happening like that. Doesn't have the same effect all of the time.
Yeah.
So what really extra good that came out of that was your boss and your boss's boss jumped in, got it squared away, and figured out for you and got it taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it did, but I mean, yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. So you can't, boils down to communication.
Yeah.
As always.
Well,
when it comes to mind reading, what?
I didn't let anyone read my mind. I fucking spoke my
mind.
Yeah,
for that situation. I'm talking more back on topic of the podcast.
No,
here.
I know, but that's what I'm saying is though, but that's how things get corrected is you you don't let people mind read, you have to speak your mind.
Yeah, they're not in a position though to even have the ability. So if you make an assumption like that, you're just completely foolish.
Yeah.
They're just not. They don't have any. They're not even in the same room as you ever. So
I wonder if we could ever find out from people why they're so scared to have conversations with their spouse. Were they always afraid to have conversations? Is it because they know that that's not the right person? Is it because they're afraid they're going to leave? And if so, why are they afraid they're going to leave? Is that person being an emotional terrorist, or are they weaponizing their love and their affection and other stuff? Like, I would love to know. I would love for people to tell us why they don't have the simplest conversations. They don't seem simple, but they are, because the more you have, the more you start off with those, you start off a little simpler, starting off with easy things. And even when you start getting into the awkward shit, it's actually funny. The awkward shit becomes funny because you both know it's awkward, but it's clearing the air.
Yeah, it's dependent upon your partner. But
guess what? When there's nothing in between the two of you that's causing blockage, you get to be closer together.
Right.
I mean, that's really that's the reality.
Right. So with that segue, that was actually a good segue.
I know.
To if we have anybody out there listening that feels that way about your significant other, or you're stuck on something, you're not sure. I mean, we're great listeners. We're not therapists. We're not, psychologists or psychiatrists or anything. We're just have a bunch of random experience that and have gone through our own stuff and come out the other side that we feel fair. It helps. Yeah, we're fair and reasonable. And we'll always say, not knowing the other side, this is my advice to you.
That's correct.
You can reach out to us via email at realshowertalk@gmail.com or Instagram.
real.shower.talk.
Yep. And then Real Shower Talk on Facebook.
Yep.
And again, if you're looking to get some emerald laser treatment or some red light therapy, or even if you want to get bronzed, you can go check out Soray Wellness. Again, if you mention Shower Talk with us, Tina and Norm, you can get 10% off. And I guess till next time, right?
Yeah, another good episode of Shower Talk.
Of us talking, yes.
No, but also I just want to say thank you. We've gotten quite a few people the last couple weeks that have been reaching out and telling us how much the podcast is helping with their situations, with their lives and their families, and that it's opened their eyes to a lot of things and made them feel better about themselves, that they're not alone. So we're super grateful because, I'm a big fan of Mel Robbins. She's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And I love how I feel after I listen to Mel Robbins' podcast. So knowing that there's people who are feeling like we do, like I do after listening to her, about that makes me really happy to know that this is what we did this for, and it's pretty awesome. Right. So thanks you guys for listening. We appreciate you.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Till next time.
Bye.